Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Spring practice, spring football is in the air. Jumping on, talking some questions we have about this Wisconsin football program as they roll into spring practice. This has been a very, very fun program. Talk about killed it in the transfer portal. Obviously, Luke Fickell, Phil Longo coming in. It's an exciting time to be a Badger fan. And before we even get into it, I just want to say thank you to you guys. The Badger fans especially, you guys have been engaging, listening to us, and we really do appreciate it. And talking with you guys in the comment section has been a blast as well. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We will be talking a lot of Wisconsin football because you look at that Big Ten West, Nebraska, Wisconsin, two of the more exciting teams that are making a push in the Big Ten. So we appreciate the support you guys have shown. Dill, let's get into it. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Let's first talk about not only Luke Fickell, and I get it. Luke Fickell's a phenomenal hire, maybe the best hire of the offseason in all of the FBS. But I think the bigger story here is Phil Longo and what this offense is going to look like heading into 2023 here.
I mean, that's going to be the thing for this Wisconsin team is can they get out from under the thumb of horrific quarterback play, really unimaginative offense, and just what they've been doing for really 10 years with Paul Chryst, where I think they started bumping up to the ceiling of what they could have ever done with what he was doing. So at the end of the day, that's why they were willing to buy him out at that level and move on from Paul Chryst. It's not because it was bad necessarily. Paul Chryst, honestly, I thought did an okay job, but if they want to get back to where they were with like Barry Alvarez and when they had Ron Dane and some of those real legends of the Wisconsin program, they were one of the better teams in the country. They needed to move on.
Yeah, as consistent as Wisconsin was, like that gap between the Buckeyes, Michigan, Penn State, some of those Big Ten East schools, and that Big Ten West in Wisconsin was just growing. And hiring a guy like Luke Fickell, that is going to give your program some juice. And you're already seeing he's killing on the recruiting class, like having David Stone up to an official visit reportedly, like getting some top-notch talent to take visits. Obviously did a really good job in the portal. So let's start with this quarterback situation. So you have Phil Longo, and Phil Longo is a phenomenal hire. You look at what he did at UNC. I mean, the development of Sam Howell first, then the development of Drake May. He's been a wonder with quarterbacks. His offense is going to be starkly different from what Wisconsin fans have seen the last decade. You're going to get spread out. You're going to throw the football all around the yard. And they bring in a quarterback in Tanner Mordecai that I think is one of the best quarterbacks. When you look at Phil Longo's system, I think Tanner Mordecai was one of the best gets in the portal in terms of matching what Phil Longo wants to do on the offense side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they're going to have a quarterback who's very ready to do what Longo wants to do. Again, if they didn't end up getting a transfer like a Tanner Mordecai who's experienced, who's been in a world where he throws the ball 30, 40 plus times a game pretty consistently, it'd be a little like, oh, what are we going to see for this first year, a couple of years of offense or so at Wisconsin, just because they are going to have to make a big transition. So I think that being able to get him and then have some guys like Nick Evers and Braden Lockey waiting in the wings who are good young players who take a year, learn from Tanner Mordecai, learn from Phil Longo, learn the offense, and then be ready to rock and roll. I feel like you kind of got a nice little runway for Wisconsin to usher in the Luke Fickell era.
And it couldn't have been more perfect. Like Tanner Mordecai is going to be a 6-year senior. He's going to be in Madison for 1 year. But you have two really talented young guys, and Nick Evers, a guy that I am super excited for. Didn't play much at Oklahoma. He's very talented, and he's going to be coming into his third year after learning from Tanner Mordecai. It couldn't be a better situation, and you look at Tanner Mordecai and what he's done. 3,600 yards in 2021 with 39 touchdowns, then 3,500 yards with 32 touchdowns in 2022. He's played in those type of offenses under Sonny Dykes, under Rhett Lashley. He's extremely experienced. He's one of the most productive quarterbacks in the whole entire country. I think this is going to ease some of those growing pains for Wisconsin. And then there's another thing that I'm just super excited to see. Braylon Allen, arguably the best running back in the whole entire country. He was going up against 8-man boxes consistently from what you mentioned, right? Wisconsin in their play calling was about as vanilla as it gets. Defenses knew what were going to happen. You were seeing 8-man boxes. Braylon Allen was still able to average 5.5 yards per carry. You're going to see a lot lighter boxes when teams have to respect what you're doing through the air. So seeing what there's this perception that like Wisconsin is going to completely go away from the run game. Like they still have a very good offensive line. They have one of the best running backs in the country. They're still going to run the ball. I just think they're going to be able to run it more effectively when you actually can throw the ball and teams have to fear a little bit and not be able to put 8-man boxes pretty consistently.
I'm with you. I don't necessarily see why they would go to like a true air raid old school Texas Tech with Mike Leach when they were really never ran the ball at all. Like that, I don't totally see that being the formula for Wisconsin. And I got to think Luke Fickell. He's a guy who he's going to want to run it for sure. He's an old D lineman. I think Phil Longo. He's the guy. He just feels like a guy who knows how to coach his players. I mean, he's just had offenses that move the football really consistently. So I think you're right. It's like you do have Braylon Allen, so you don't want to not give him the ball. He's still got to touch it 20 plus times.
And Ches Malusi's damn good running back as well.
100%. So those guys got to get theirs. But at the end of the day, it's just, can they bring in something that's balanced? Can they have an offense that can move it and not be in constant third and longs? And you have one negative play, you're done. That's how they had been with how weak the quarterback play was and how their offense was structured. They didn't really have any chance to
be steady. Looking at the pass catchers, this is I think an extremely underrated group, and it's I think largely part of Graham Mertz just really wasn't able to get it done through the air. So you have a lot of guys like DK, Skylar Bell, Keontae Lewis, like those guys can play, and I just don't think they really had the opportunity to show what they can do. And then on top of that, Luke Fickell comes in probably saying, I want some more dynamic players. Phil Longo probably leading that recruiting a little bit more. And they go land two of the better wide receivers that you see available in the transfer portal. CJ Williams highlighting the group. I mean, he's coming in 6'2", maybe even 6'3", 205 pounds. He's a big X receiver who can go up and make plays. Former top 50 guy. I mean, Wisconsin is not used to having that much talent on the offensive side of the ball. And when you bring in a guy like Phil Longo, you're a top-notch wide receiver, you're a top wide receiver coming out of high school or in the transfer portal. That's one of the guys you want to go play for. And you see all the wide receivers he put into the league at UNC. Josh Downs probably going to be the most recent. Guys are going to gravitate to that kind of offense, and landing a guy like CJ Williams from USC, Bryson Green from Oklahoma State. This pass-catching group looks to be pretty damn loaded.
Loaded, because even last year they were good. It's just what you mentioned. Like Chimere DK, I think, is a sneaky all Big Ten level player. I think that's how good he can be with a quarterback who can just be steady. I mean, a big physical wideout. We've obviously Michigan knows him. He's making some big plays in the game we played in 21 with them. But I think that's the reason guys like Bell, Chimere DK, they're both staying. I think if Paul Chris doesn't leave, I think they're both out. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to get back a talented group. You're going to bring in some transfers. I mean, Bryson Green, just a really steady, solid wideout. And then CJ Williams gives you a little more firepower potential, or can he take tops off defenses kind of thing. At the end of the day, you do have a really good group.
And, I mean, and not to go through the whole depth chart here, but this offensive line is pretty damn deep.
I think this offensive line needs to be overhauled in a sense, because I think it was not what you needed it to be last year. If you watch what they were doing, like, I think they have the players, but I think there were a lot of injuries that you didn't see the same starting five playing that consistently.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I want to see Nolan Rucci play now. I mean, this, like, he was that guy. He came in big time. I think he was a 5-star. He's as big a guy as they've gotten. I think him and
Jack Nelson, I think,
need to be the two. Like, they need to be the two tackles. I think those two are both NFL level. Again, Jack Nelson, I don't know. It felt like a disrupted year last year. I was really high on him coming in from 21, and then 22. It just felt like it never got rolling for him. Yeah. But a guy who
say that with a lot of the like, I think Joe Tittman, like, doing the draft stuff. Like, I think Joe Tittman played as well as he could have played. That was a group that I think they have the players. I just wish you saw a little bit better production there.
And again, I don't know. Like, I wasn't following necessarily as intricately, but when you watch back the tape game to game, you didn't see the same starting five ever.
No.
And can you get that this year? And again, I do think you have the talent bringing Jake Renfro. I think he's going to be better than Joe Tittman. It's not like Joe Tittman was.
I like Joe Tittman. I just didn't think he played as well as he could have in 2022. But you have
that's the thing, though, and you don't play well. It's like
and you have Joe Huber coming in too. And my kind of take on that is Luke Fickell wouldn't be bringing over some of his Cincinnati guys if he didn't think he'd make that Wisconsin team better immediately. And so you're bringing two guys in that even if they don't necessarily start in your starting five, They are two really, really solid offensive linemen who've played a lot of football at Cincinnati that are just adding to the depth of this group. Because when you say it again, one, they struggle with injuries. Two, this was a group that you look at the personnel. It's a good group. Like the players are solid. I just think they came together as well. And I mean, I don't want to throw Graham Mertz under the bus, but I think when your offense just struggles to stay on the football field, I think that hurts the offensive line. I think that's why you saw them struggle a little bit. Now, I want to look over this is what Wisconsin's known for, their defense. Jim Leonard obviously just was so good for them for so long. Bringing in Mike Tressel, I think that when you look at Luke Fickell and Mike Tressel and what they did at Cincinnati, it wasn't about the personnel. It was about the scheme and the development. Because those guys, Sauce Gardner, he wasn't a dude that came in as a 5-star recruit. He was developed in a very, very good way. Kobe Bryant as well. Cincinnati put a ton of guys in the NFL draft who were like 2-3-star recruits. You're dealing with probably some better talent on the defensive side of the ball. And my take on the defense is I just trust Luke Fickell and Mike Tressel to get the best out of these guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you are obviously losing a fair amount from the D line from last year with Herbig and Benton gone, and those
I
two
like them both too.
Those two were the playmakers of the group. But I think at the end of the day, what you're getting back is two inside linebackers.
Yep.
55, 54. They're both going to be NFL players. What I was most impressed is they pretty much do everything. They were getting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks when they were sent on blitzes. They clean up on sideline to sideline in the run. Like they're just guys who are doing so much for that team. I think to have both of them back for another year, develop a little more even, they're going to be the leaders, and I think they have to be because, again, you're looking at these other positions. You're not bringing back as much production. As much as like the secondary is bringing some guys back, they weren't the standout players from that unit. That's for sure.
My sneaky Darian Varner coming over from Temple transfer. I mean, only played in 10 games for Temple, 12 and a half tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, like was very, very productive. I'm looking for him to kind of come in and be a starter and be a difference maker for this Wisconsin team that, again, when you look at Wisconsin and how they've played defense over the years, they haven't necessarily relied on stars. It's kind of your 111. Like everyone's playing their responsibility. Everyone's playing their gap, and it's a really, really sound defense. I don't think you'll see that change under Luke Fickell and Mike Tressel. And still, what I kind of want to get to, and the offensive side of the ball is a little bit more exciting to talk about than the defense because Wisconsin's defense is just going to be solid. Like Def Tax is solid Wisconsin defense. The offense is what's going to make or break Luke Fickell's tenure in Madison because you're seeing a big change up. Now, when you look at Wisconsin, year one expectations, do you think it's unfair to expect a winning the Big Ten West here?
No, again, and you look at like the new teams that I think got really good in the Big Ten West. It's pretty much Nebraska, Wisconsin are the two teams that really shook the tree, if you will. I think Illinois is probably going to take a bit of a step back. I think they had a really good team, but we'll see if they can reload what they have, but I'm a little skeptical of them. But at the end of the day, these two teams, Wisconsin, Nebraska, they're the two teams that should be the best. They have the most history, and I think they have the greatest potential. They both, I think, did what they had to do to put themselves back as the leaders of that side of the division. So I don't think it's totally ridiculous to say they should be competitive. Of course,
I think they're my favorite. If you're asking me, because you look at some of the teams in the Big Ten West who were dangerous. Purdue with Aiden O'Connell, he's gone. You have Hudson Card, and that's kind of an exciting addition, but I think Purdue loses a lot. I don't think there's many teams in the Big Ten West that I'd be picking to beat Wisconsin on a neutral site. You take a look at their schedule, like their only Big Ten East matchup is Ohio State, and they get them at home, but you're not playing Michigan, you're not playing Penn State, and so you look at this schedule, like Washington State, that's going to be a fun one, little revenge game there. But on the road at Purdue with Hudson Card, how well that happens, and then on the road at Illinois, this is going to be a big game. But when you look at the Big Ten West, I don't think there's many teams that are scaring you if you're Wisconsin. I think you're going to be favorites in a lot of these games. And if I'm a Wisconsin fan, I know it's a lot to ask for, especially with the overhaul that you'll see on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think it's crazy to expect a Big Ten West title.
But realistically, it's only a year removed from Wisconsin pretty much winning this side of the division every year without fail, and there was no questions at all. Like they won it. There was Ohio State would win the East. Wisconsin would win the West. That's basically how it'd been for such a long time. So no, I don't think just because Wisconsin took a little step back last year, and again, they made the changes they needed to make to kind of not let that spiral into chaos. I certainly wouldn't think it, or certainly don't think they shouldn't be right up there with anyone.
Yeah, and Wisconsin's a team that this is the future. I think is brighter than year one. Yeah, you have Tanner Mordecai coming in, which I'm excited for. You might see some growing pains, and I don't think that's unfair. Kind of like with Brent Venables taking over Oklahoma, like there are significant changes. This isn't just like hiring the OC to become the next head coach. You're going to see significant changes. You might see some sort of growing pains, but again, when you look at that early, like you got some games to warm up and get your reps in. Buffalo, Washington State, I do not think will be that good. And then Georgia Southern, very excited not only for year one of Wisconsin, but the tenure for Luke Fickell. I think a lot of the Wisconsin fans are very excited. We are obviously very excited, and we appreciate you guys for checking us out. So again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. In the summer, we'll be diving a little bit deeper into this Wisconsin depth chart, some more specifics on players that we are excited to check out. And again, appreciate the support the Badger fans have shown. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.